Tonight, flight into controversy for Canada's CF5 jets. Unwelcome guests, a rough night for animal rights activists. And making a splash on the Friday file.
The CTV News. Substituting for Lloyd Robertson, here is Keith Morrison.
Good evening. There is some disturbing news tonight about what might happen to some of Canada's old military equipment. CTV News has learned it may end up in the hands of a country with a questionable human rights record. The equipment is our aging fleet of CF5 fighter bombers, and the country is Turkey. And the fear is the planes could be used to bomb Kurdish civilians. Still, negotiations are well underway, and the Turkish embassy says it is confident a deal will be struck. Mark Sickstrom has more in this CTV inquiry.
Canada's CF5s became expendable when the government announced last fall that it was retiring the fleet to save money. The government wants to sell the fighter bombers to recover some of the $75 million recently spent modernizing them. And the country that wants them is Turkey. A spokesman for the Turkish embassy says he's confident the two sides will come together to make a deal. The most important thing now is money.
We actually hosted the general of the Turkish Air Force a few weeks ago and flew him and showed him the airplane. And I'm not aware of his report back to Turkey, but I know they're certainly interested.
Canada used the CF5 as an advanced jet trainer, but they are fully capable fighter bombers.
And that has Kurdish groups in Canada worried.
Canada must be blind not to see that. They will bomb a few more villages. My people has their villages destroyed.
Canada has criticized Turkey's record of human rights violations, which includes not only the bombing of civilians, but the violent suppression of anyone that advocates Kurdish independence.
There is absolutely no question in my mind that the human rights record is atrocious.
Amnesty International says that Canada is even considering selling fighter bombers to Turkey is surprising and dangerous.
It seems inconceivable that such equipment would be used for anything other than major attacks from the air on Kurdish areas.
Any export of military goods is subject to review by the Department of Foreign Affairs. But if the government has reservations about the CF5 sale, it has yet to make them public. Mark Sickstrom, CTV News, at Canadian Forces Base Cold Lake.
Environmentalist Paul Watson did not receive a very warm welcome when he arrived in Canada to push his latest idea. Watson claims he can harvest the coats of baby seals without harming the seals. He's been granted an experimental license to comb seal hair so it can be marketed. But the controversial head of the Sea Shepherd Society was venturing into unfriendly territory when he arrived in the Magdalen Islands in the St. Lawrence. There, he is blamed for putting an end to the seal hunt, once the livelihood for many local residents. And as CTV's Alan Fryer reports, that animosity boiled over.
The sealers wanted cameras out of the way so they could run Paul Watson out of town.
So they're going to the Auberge Madly, where he's staying, and tell the owner he's not desirable here.
And just across town, angry sealers took over the lobby of the hotel in which Watson was staying.
Get out. It's my hotel.
Upstairs, Watson, as well as some high-profile supporters traveling with him, huddled nervously in their locked hotel rooms. Actor Martin Sheen said he appealed to the sealers for calm, but it did no good.
They were rather juvenile, to say the least.
Yeah.
And one lad was showing me his sealskin shoes with great pride.
I don't understand. You need to get out of here with your film. They're coming back.
They're coming back in the airport.
You're going to get everything, okay?
The hotel door was kicked in. Watson roughed up, beaten up badly, he says, by about 50 sealers.
They hesitated, and then one of them came over and punched me in the side of the head, at which point I was able to knock 3 of them down with a stun gun that I had, but the others then just piled in. It was like an avalanche of people.
Police finally arrived and escorted Watson to the airport, where he was put on a charter flight to Moncton. The others were also escorted by police to the airport and flew out safely this morning.
You going to New Brunswick? You're not going
I'm going to Montreal, then to New Brunswick.
Oh, okay, cool.
In Moncton, Watson was limping for the cameras, but his account of just how badly he was roughed up was denied by police and other witnesses. Still, there is no denying the bitterness felt by many on this island whose livelihoods used to depend on the seal hunt, a hunt Watson and his group helped put an end to.
As one of them said, he said, you know, it doesn't matter what we do, we can kill you because, you know, we're on welfare and we don't care. We can't sink lower than this, so we don't care what the world thinks of what we do.
Alan Fryer, CTV News.
The labor dispute at CP Rail has become a lot more serious, with thousands of more workers off the job now. The railway locked out members of another union today, and that means those who repair locomotives and rail cars join on the picket line those who maintain the tracks. Some believe now that the only solution lies with the government. Colin Gray reports.
The trains are still running, but you might not want to set your watch by them. CP has now locked out 7,000 workers, and even company officials will tell you that's no way to run a railroad.
There's no question that, you know, there is some impact to us, and there's certainly some impact to some of the customers that we serve, but we're doing what we can to help arrange alternate service for them.
Pickets are up across the country. The Brotherhood of Maintenance of Way workers have been locked out for a week and have now been joined by Canadian auto workers who were locked out for refusing to cross the picket lines. The big issue here is job security. The existing package is extremely generous, with some workers being guaranteed salaries for life. The company says it can no longer afford such a deal. The people on the picket line point out they made salary concessions to get that deal. They say the company gave them something on one hand and shouldn't be trying to take it away with the other.
We gave up a lot of stuff in order to get this in the first place, and the company was quite willing then. I mean, you can't just waffle with a breeze and do whatever suits you now. That's not fair.
We're supposed to get a decent agreement where we can, at least we have job security. I've been here 7 years. That's all I know, how to spike, how to run the railway machine. If they kick me out tomorrow, what I'm going to do? Nothing, right?
The company's answer, welcome to the 90s.
We're all working harder, having to do more with less. You know, we hear these things all the time. Our industry is not different. We're not isolated.
In Ottawa, pressure is mounting for the government to legislate an end to the dispute.
We are following the situation very closely, and obviously we'll be taking a look at what's in the public interest as the situation develops.
CP's manager fill-ins have the railway running at 70% efficiency. It's how the missing 30% is felt throughout the economy that will decide if and when back-to-work legislation is required. Colin Gray, CTV News, Vancouver.
It was the law that got cargo moving on West Coast docks today. The federal government ordered longshore foremen back to work. 485 of them struck 4 days ago, and other workers refused to cross their picket lines. Vancouver is the busiest port in the country, the gateway to billions of dollars worth of imports and exports. There is new hope for a resolution of the longshoremen strike in Montreal. The two sides are talking at least. The Port of Montreal has been shut down since March 7th, losses estimated at $2 million a day, and that issue is also job security. Judge Ito